My brother surprised me with a luxury cruise for my 30th birthday. 7 days of paradise, he said. What he didn't tell me was that passengers had been disappearing from this exact ship for months. By day 3, I realized I might never make it home alive. If you've ever felt like something was too good to be true, you'll understand exactly what I went through. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story will make you think twice about accepting any surprise gifts. Trust me, you need to hear this. I was having the worst month of my life when Jake showed up at my apartment with an envelope in his hand and that grin he gets when he thinks he's being clever. I'd been working double shifts at my accounting firm, barely sleeping, living off coffee and takeout. My 30th birthday was coming up, and honestly, I just wanted to crawl into bed and pretend it wasn't happening. "Happy early birthday, sis," Jake said, sliding the envelope across my kitchen table. Inside was a cruise ticket. Not just any cruise ticket, this was for the Oceania Dreams, one of those luxury liners I'd only seen in commercials. 7 days through the Caribbean, departing in 3 days. "Jake, I can't afford this," I said, staring at the ticket. The cabin was listed as a balcony suite. This had to cost thousands. "Already paid for," he said, still grinning. "You've been working yourself to death. You need this more than anyone. Just pack some sundresses and go have fun for once." I should have asked more questions. I should have wondered how my brother, who worked construction and was always borrowing money from me, suddenly had enough cash to book a luxury cruise. But I was so tired, so burned out, that the idea of 7 days with nothing to do but eat good food and sit by a pool sounded like heaven. 3 days later, I was standing at the Miami port, looking up at the Oceania Dreams. She was massive, gleaming white against the blue sky, with multiple decks and what looked like enough amenities for a small city. Other passengers were boarding, laughing, and taking selfies. Everyone looked excited, happy. I started to feel that vacation excitement building in my chest for the first time in months. The check-in process was thorough, more thorough than I expected. They took multiple photos, scanned my passport twice, asked for emergency contacts, and detailed medical information. The staff member processing my paperwork, a woman with perfect teeth and an unnaturally wide smile, asked about my job, my family situation, whether I was traveling alone. "Just want to make sure we can provide the best possible experience," she said when I hesitated. "The more we know about our guests, the better we can serve them." My room assignment changed 3 times before I finally got my key card. First they said there was a plumbing issue, then an electrical problem, then something about balancing the ship's weight distribution. By the time I got to my cabin on deck 7, I was annoyed but tried to shake it off. The room was beautiful, king bed, marble bathroom, and a balcony overlooking the ocean. The first 2 days were everything Jake had promised. The food was incredible. 5 different restaurants, 24-hour room service, desserts that looked like works of art. I spent hours by the pool, reading a book I'd been meaning to finish for months. There were shows every night, a casino, even rock climbing walls. I met some other passengers at dinner. Tom, a retired high school teacher from Ohio who told hilarious stories about his students. Lisa, a nurse from Boston taking her first vacation in 5 years. And Robert, a businessman from Chicago who seemed to know everything about everything. We became a little group, eating meals together, attending the shows, playing trivia. For the first time in months, I felt myself actually relaxing. I posted photos on social media, the sunset from my balcony, the elaborate breakfast buffet, selfies with my new friends. Life felt good again. Then Tom disappeared. On day 3, he didn't show up for breakfast. We waited at our usual table, but his chair stayed empty. When I asked our waiter, Carlos, he just shrugged and said maybe Tom was sleeping in. But Tom was an early riser. He'd been up at dawn every morning, walking the deck before anyone else was awake. By lunch, I was worried. I went to the guest services desk and asked if they could check on him. The woman behind the counter, different from the one who'd checked me in, typed something into her computer and smiled that same unnaturally wide smile. "Mr. Thompson disembarked at our last port," she said. He decided to extend his vacation on the island. But we hadn't stopped at any port. I'd been watching from my balcony, nothing but open ocean for 3 straight days. When I pointed this out, the woman's smile faltered for just a second before snapping back into place. "Oh, you must be thinking of a different day," she said. "We made a brief stop yesterday evening. Very brief. Many passengers don't even notice." I knew she was lying. I'd been on that balcony until nearly midnight, and we definitely hadn't stopped anywhere. But what was I supposed to do? Argue with her? I walked away feeling uneasy. At dinner, Lisa and Robert acted like Tom had never existed. When I brought him up, they looked at me blankly. "Tom?" Lisa said. "I don't think I know anyone named Tom." "The teacher from Ohio," I insisted. "He sat right here yesterday, told us about his student who brought a pet snake to class." Robert frowned. "I think you might be confused. It's been just the 3 of us since day 1. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Tom's stories, his laugh, the way he'd complained about the coffee being too weak. He was real. I hadn't imagined him, but everyone else seemed to have collectively forgotten he existed. I decided to find his room. I'd seen him use his key card on deck 5, so I wandered the halls until I found a housekeeping cart. When the attendant went into another room, I casually asked about room 512, the number I'd seen Tom write on a napkin when we were exchanging room numbers. "Room 512?" she said, looking confused. "That room has been empty this whole cruise. Plumbing problems." The next day, I explored the ship more thoroughly. I found areas marked crew only that seemed to have more security than necessary. During my wandering, I spotted something glinting between the deck chairs in a restricted area. It was a pair of glasses, Tom's glasses. I'd seen him reading the dinner menu with them every night. I tried to report this to the captain, but was told he was unavailable. When I insisted it was important, they sent me to the security chief, a tall man with cold eyes who listened to my concerns with an expression that never changed. "Passengers sometimes leave things behind when they disembark," he said, taking the glasses from me. "We'll make sure these get returned to him." "But he didn't disembark," I said. "We haven't stopped at any ports." The security chief smiled, that same unnatural smile everyone seemed to have. "Ma'am, I think the ocean air might be affecting your memory. We've made several port stops. Perhaps you should visit our medical center. They have something that might help you relax." That afternoon, my phone stopped working. No signal, no Wi-Fi, nothing. When I asked about it, I was told there were technical difficulties they were working to resolve. But I noticed other passengers using their phones just fine. On day 5, Robert mentioned something that made my blood run cold. We were at lunch, and he was telling a story about another passenger he'd met at the casino. "Whatever happened to that couple from New York?" he said. "The Hendersons. They seemed nice." "What couple?" Lisa asked. Robert looked confused. "They were sitting right over there yesterday, middle-aged, celebrating their anniversary." "I don't remember any couple," Lisa said, and I watched that same blank expression cross her face that she'd had when I mentioned Tom. That evening, I watched as 2 crew members escorted Robert away from the dining room. They were polite about it, smiling and speaking in low tones, but Robert looked scared. I tried to follow them, but another crew member blocked my path. "Is there something I can help you with?" he asked, that same practiced smile. "Where are they taking Robert?" "I believe he wasn't feeling well. They're taking him to the medical center." I never saw Robert again. That night, I couldn't stay in my room. I felt like the walls were closing in. I snuck up to the higher decks, areas most passengers weren't supposed to access. Near what looked like the bridge, I heard voices through an open porthole. "The quota isn't met yet," someone was saying. "We need at least 3 more before we reach the rendezvous point." "What about the woman in 712? She's been asking questions." "Perfect. She fits the profile anyway. Single, limited family connections, works a job where no one would miss her for weeks." Room 712. That was my room. I pressed myself against the wall, heart hammering. They were talking about me, about quotas and rendezvous points, and people not being missed. The pieces started falling into place, the thorough check-in process, The questions about my personal life, the way passengers kept disappearing while everyone else forgot they'd existed. I crept back to my room, mind racing. I needed to get off this ship, but we were in the middle of the ocean. I needed to contact someone, but my phone didn't work. I needed help, but who could I trust? The next morning, I tried to act normal, but everything felt different. The crew members watched me more closely. My key card wouldn't work in certain elevators. When I tried to go to the upper decks again, I found my access had been restricted. During lunch, I excused myself and searched for any way to communicate with the outside world. I found what looked like a communication room, but it was locked. Through a small window, I could see radio equipment and computers. That's when I found Anna. Anna was a young crew member, maybe 22, from the Philippines. She was cleaning one of the service corridors when I practically ran into her while trying to avoid the security cameras I'd started noticing everywhere. "You're in danger," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "I've been watching. You ask too many questions." "What's happening on this ship?" I whispered back. Anna's eyes filled with tears. "They take passengers, sell them. I've seen it before. The families back home, they never get answers about what happened to their loved ones." She told me the truth I'd already started to piece together. The Oceania Dreams wasn't just a cruise ship. It was a front for a human trafficking operation. They selected passengers carefully, people who wouldn't be missed immediately, who didn't have strong family connections or demanding jobs. The cruise was the perfect cover, isolated in international waters, no jurisdiction, no oversight. "Your brother," Anna said, "they paid him to get you on this ship. You match their profile perfectly." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Jake hadn't given me a gift, he'd sold me. Anna helped me understand the ship's routine. In 2 days, we'd rendezvous with another vessel in international waters. The selected passengers would be transferred. After that, we'd officially disappear. The ship would report that we'd fallen overboard or had accidents. "We have to get word out," I said. Anna shook her head. "I tried before. They caught me. Said if I ever tried again, they'd throw me overboard and tell my family I quit." But I couldn't give up. We came up with a plan. During the next evening's entertainment, a loud musical show that would cover noise and distract the crew, Anna would disable the security cameras in the communication room section while I tried to send a distress signal. The plan almost worked. I managed to get into the communication room and sent out a mayday with our coordinates. I included everything I knew about the trafficking operation, the missing passengers, the planned rendezvous. I sent it on multiple emergency frequencies, praying someone would receive it. But as I was finishing the transmission, the door burst open. The security chief stood there with 2 other men, and his practiced smile was completely gone. "You've caused us a lot of trouble," he said. They grabbed me, but before they could get me out of the room, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Not the fire alarm, something different. Through the porthole, I could see lights on the horizon, growing brighter. The Coast Guard had received my signal. What followed was chaos. The ship tried to flee, engines roaring to life, but it was too late. Coast Guard vessels surrounded us, their searchlights turning night into day. Over loudspeakers, they ordered the ship to stop and prepare to be boarded. I was locked in a storage room while the crew tried to figure out what to do with me, but it didn't matter anymore. Within an hour, Coast Guard officers were cutting the lock and pulling me out. They found other passengers too, people I'd never seen before, who'd been held in areas of the ship I didn't even know existed. The investigation that followed uncovered years of disappearances, dozens of passengers who'd vanished from various cruises operated by the same company. The crew members were arrested, the operation dismantled. They found evidence connecting the trafficking ring to buyers around the world. Jake was arrested too. When I confronted him, he broke down and admitted they'd approached him months ago. They'd been watching me, studying my life, my routines, my isolation. They paid him $10,000 to get me on that ship. He said he thought they were just going to rob me, maybe hold me for ransom. He claimed he didn't know about the trafficking. I don't know if I believe him. I don't know if it matters. The aftermath was almost as hard as the experience itself. Therapy helped, but I still have nightmares about the ocean, about that practiced smile every crew member wore, about the sound of footsteps in corridors. I moved to a new city, changed jobs, slowly rebuilt my life. But I'm sharing this story because I want people to understand something important. Evil doesn't always look like what you expect. It can look like a luxury cruise, like a generous gift from family, like friendly staff and beautiful sunsets and perfectly prepared meals. It can hide behind smiles and efficiency and the promise of relaxation. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. If people start disappearing and everyone acts like they never existed, don't let them convince you you're crazy. If a gift seems too good to be true,